Couldn't hear your thumbs up. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this extraordinary licensing committee meeting. I'm Councillor Paul Dick, the Vice Chairman of the committee, and I'm standing in for the Chairman who cannot be here today. I'm supported today by members of the committee who are Councillor Barnett, Councillor Billy Drummond, Paul Cander's not here, Councillor Jane Langford, Councillor David Marsh, Councillor Stephanie Stevenson, Councillor Clive Taylor and Councillor Martha Vickers. Vicky Rigdon and Mark Groves are the officers who will be advising the meeting. Ben Ryan is in attendance as the clerk to the committee, and the Zoom host is Thomas Radbourne. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube so members of the public can follow the proceedings. May I ask everyone present in the meeting area to make sure that when you're speaking to be loud and clear so that those at home can hear you. Can I also ask you to make sure that your mobile phones are on silent and that you've turned the sound off on your tablets. If we hear the evacuation alarm this afternoon, we must leave the building immediately. Please proceed via the safe emergency exit route, which will be shown to us by the trained officers. Please follow any instructions given by the trained officers. The assembly point is the Dolphin car park. Anyone requiring help will be assisted accordingly by the said trained officers. Do any members have any questions about the way this meeting will be conducted before we proceed? No? Thank you. So item 1 are apologies, sir.
Chairman, we've received apologies from Councillors Jeremy Cottam, Nigel Foot and Justin Pemberton.
Thank you. So noted. Item 2. So members, is there anything in relation to this agenda you need to declare, wish to declare? From everyone? So recorded. Thank you very much. Item number 3 is the sole item, substantive item, and it is a document which, if approved by us, will go out to all involved for consultation. So I believe Mark Groves is going to introduce the report. Sir, we're in your hands.
Thank you very much, Chair. The purpose of this report is to consider the draft policy which has been prepared in response to the Department of Transport's guidance on the statutory taxi and private hire vehicle standards and the updated revised best practice guidance, all issued by the Department for Transport. The recommendations this evening are that officers should consult on the draft Hackney carriage and private hire licence policy set out in Appendix A, subject to any changes made at this meeting of the committee. Agree that the consultation should run from the 18th of March to the 18th of May 2025 and that it will be promoted as set out in paragraph 4.7 of the report. It also recommends that on conclusion of the consultation and consideration of responses, the matter to return for further consideration to a future 2025 Licences Committee for adoption. In November 2022, the Department for Transport updated and issued new guidance in relation to Hackney carriage and private hire licensing in the statutory taxi and private hire vehicle standards, which were first published in July 2020. This required local authorities to review, revise and update their policies in relation to Hackney carriage and private hire licensing. West Berkshire Council does not currently have a policy in relation to taxi licence, but has terms and conditions in relation to each licence type and convictions policy. This policy seeks to consolidate all of this information into a single document. The statutory standards set out a range of measures to protect taxi and private hire vehicle passengers, and in particular those most vulnerable. The government advice is that licensing authorities should work together to ensure that, above all else, the taxi and private hire vehicle services to the public use are safe. An initial report of the statutory standards was brought to the committee in 2020, but it was not adopted at the time. This draft policy has been viewed and approved for consultation by the Legal Department of West Berkshire Council, and they will be further consulted on with any regard to any legal matters arising from the consultation that goes forward. As said, it is proposed that the consultation run for an 8-week period from the 18th of March to the 18th of May. The consultation document will be published on the Public Protection Partnership website and the West Berkshire Consultation Portal. Officers will write to the parties listed in 4.7 above and any additional groups identified at the meeting to seek their views on the draft policy. The consultation will also be supported by a media campaign, and a taxi trade liaison group meeting has been arranged to discuss the revised draft policy, and this will take place on the 7th of April 2025. Officers are recommending that the outcome of the consultation will be reported back to a future licence committee for discussion, and the committee will consider the consultation and will then be asked to adopt policy with or without amendments. That concludes the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, sir. That's very clear, very helpful. So, members, have you any questions or comments? Councillor Vickers.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the report. I was just on 4.7, the people that we should consult, the bodies we should consult with. I know it's quite difficult as regards those with special needs disabilities, but do we have a group or any groups representing those with disabilities that we consult with? It's not listed, and I'm not sure that we have a particular body that we consult with at the moment. And also it mentions climate strategy teams in the authority. So I'm just wondering, I would imagine part of the purpose of that is just to see whether we might be encouraging taxi firms and taxi holders to, when they have to replace their vehicles, to be looking at replacing them with electric vehicles, whether that's part of our consultation, because they are getting cheaper now. And I know this is something that Councillor Marsh is quite keen on and has brought up in the past, as well as the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps Mr. Groves can have a go at that.
Thank you very much, Councillor. In relation to the disability bodies, those can be added and will be looked at how the best we can speak to those and get the message across to them. There probably is a set system that the council has in which we can access these groups.
And that would include people possibly with learning disabilities, sort of relatively mild learning disabilities.
It would cover as many disability groups as we can. Yes. And in relation to the climate change, is that the reason that the climate change strategies have been included is because West Berkshire Council will have a climate strategy which we are obviously trying to get to net zero by the 2030, and we want to ensure that the policy that we are bringing forward, because it lasts for 5 years, is helpful in the way in which they are trying to get to their goal in 2030, and if the trade can help in any way.
Well, there's nothing in there at the moment, I don't think, which seems to help towards that goal that I can see.
I think in one section there is a little part which says that any new or any renewals from 2027 will have to conform to Euro 6, which is the highest standard that NCAP have at the moment.
And maybe as time is going on, electric vehicles are becoming more accessible and cheaper. We could add that.
The problem we have with electric vehicles for the taxi trade is there's not a large selection which are suitable to be used as taxis. Therefore, it's slightly different. And the ones that are available, which are readily used in London and in Reading, our neighbours, cost somewhere in the region of £60,000. So they're not a cheap option. And that's a large expense. So we're trying to bring it in as gradually as we can, really. Yeah.
So are you content with that, Councillor?
No, as long as regards the electric vehicles, we are constantly sort of maybe updating that if things do change, because the science and the technology moves on quite quickly sometimes, so that might need updating at some stage.
I saw Mr. Groves nodding, so I'll take that as a affirmative. And just before we come to Councillor Drummond, so are members in support of the idea that there should be a special needs angle on the consultation?
I was going to ask the very same question myself, and I'd like to suggest the Learning Disability Partnership Board. I'm on as West Berkshire's representative, but they do not really representative. I'll try and say it in a minute. Doesn't matter. Represent the people with physical disabilities in wheelchairs, and I do think you need to try and access those people specifically if you can.
Right. Thank you, Councillor. My question was, are we in support generally of making sure that people with special needs can access this consultation? Is that a yes from everybody? So, thank you. So I think Mr. Grove's pen's moving, so that's a good sign. So we'll leave it to him to access the best systems within the council to achieve that, if you're happy with that suggestion. Thank you. Councillor Drummond.
Thank you, Chairman. Page 12 point B. It's private hire vehicles. Operators are encouraged to identify a passenger's accessibility needs before they take a booking. Well, I've called 3 taxis for my wife in the last month, and I've never been asked for anything like that. They're only encouraged. Can we not make that stronger?
I don't know. Sir?
Yes, we can change the wording to that one to make it a bit more stringent, shall we say.
Thank you.
And then on to page 38, question 40, on the challenge of the knowledge. I know it's not like London, but they have to go around in motorbikes for a year and every street, but they're given a second chance after 6 months. Can I ask the question, how many fail after the 6 months? And also the right to use Google Maps.
I don't know.
No,
but Mr. Groves will.
Through you, Chairman.
Thank you.
I don't know the answer to that one either, Chair.
What's neither question?
I don't know how many people fail after the 6 months that we have in.
Does your colleague?
No, I don't think.
We don't have that many. Well, we do have quite a few that fail.
That's not a number.
Yes.
That resit it after 6 months. They normally have 2 or 3 goes at it beforehand, and then the policy is to then leave it 6 months. So that's new coming in, as opposed to anything else. But actually the knowledge test, just so that you're aware, the knowledge test will cover multiple areas, not just the knowledge of the local area. So with the new policy coming in, it will be law and policy, highway code, the geography of the area, safeguarding and disability awareness training as well.
Thank you.
And can I ask, are they allowed to use Google Maps?
Can I answer that?
Do you know?
Well, I thought I read somewhere today that they are allowed to use sat-nav. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Can we ask the officers just to confirm rather than us all guessing?
So
Do we know?
I'm presuming you mean as part of a journey, whether they're allowed to use sat-nav as part of a PDA. That the answer would be yes for a private hire. For a Hackney, I would expect them to generally know the local area.
Are you satisfied, sir?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors got any questions or comments? Bearing in mind this is a document that's going out for consultation. Councillor Barnett.
Acting Chairman, coming back to the consultation process, we've noted in the past that sometimes we don't get the amount of comments that we would love to receive to make sure that it's a balanced judgment. During the consultation process or the period that we've identified as the period, is there any times during that period we might be able to nudge or remind the possible consultees that they need to respond by that given time, bearing in mind that I think if we only receive 1 or 2 responses, it makes it a little bit difficult for officers to really gauge whether that's a fair account of the document that needs to be consulted on.
That's a very fair question. I'll defer to the officers.
Yes, we're more than happy to do that. Depending on the length of time that you wish for us to consult, we can send reminders as well.
Councillor Barnett has nodded his agreement, and I think others as well. Members, any further questions?
Yeah, on page 12 of the actual, sorry, it's page 27 or page 12, depending on which page number, which is about CCTV in vehicles. I mean, it struck me, I mean, you know, looking down that list of requirements, it looked very sensible, but I did wonder, you know, it starts off where CCTV is fitted. I mean, should it be a requirement that CCTV is fitted? Because it seemed a sensible function to have in a taxi or a private hire vehicle.
Thank you. Again, I'll defer to officers. I suspect the answer is no, but.
At this present time, it is not mandatory for the taxi and private hire trade in West Berkshire to have CCTV cameras. So it is the individual choice of the drivers concerned, for which they then have to comply with the current requirements in the policy. However, it is something that we are looking for in the future, and a separate report will be brought to the councillors in due course with recommendations that this is possibly taken forward in relation to it being in vehicles on a permanent basis. But it's a big and lengthy subject and takes a lot of work and consultation period to get that in place.
So thank you. So that sounds like it will be coming back in due course. Are you content with that?
Yeah, I mean, if I could just. I mean, are there some authority? Am I right in thinking then there are other authorities where it is a requirement?
There are quite a few authorities around the UK now which are making it a mandatory requirement as set out by councillors and in separate policies.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both. Councillor Vickers was next. You were next. And no, he wasn't. But we could discuss it.
It's just that I've had one go. I thought maybe I'm just being fair. Yeah, I thought the CCTV was a bit odd, actually, having a CCTV in a taxi, but I don't know. I mean, I don't use taxis that often. I'm just fortunate enough not to be in a position to have to. But I can see the pros. I was going to ask about complaints procedures and whether or not whether people are aware about complaints and who they complain to, and whether or not there's a sign, a very visible sign in the taxi saying, you know, if you're unhappy with the behaviour or your treatment or whatever, whether it's to do with access or whether it's just to do with the behaviour of the driver, this is what you do. And we encourage you to let us know. Do you know what I mean? Because people often need encouragement to complain and need very clear guidelines about what they should do if they're not happy in any way of the service that they get.
Thank you, Councillor. Again, I'll defer. I'm not sure about the expression encouraging people to complain, making sure they can complain if they've got a serious issue, perhaps. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor. We do ask that the members of the public do make any complaints, good or bad. We would like to receive compliments about the trade. Sadly, we don't seem to get many of those, but then we don't get many complaints either about the trade. So on the whole, the trade is very good in West Berkshire. There are processes in place that they can go onto the council's complaints procedures to put in any complaints to us, so they get dealt with by the enforcement officers in place.
Is there a sign in the taxi about complaints procedures, something very visible?
The trade there are nodding their head in great agreement.
It's on the tariff card. It's on the tariff card. It's showing the fares, which technically you should know because you set the fares.
I do believe someone's speaking out of turn there, but I understood what he said, and I can confirm that there is such a wording on the signs, so that's fine.
Thank you.
May I now move on and treat Councillor Marsh fairly?
Well, it's a very small point, Chair, but on page 71, item 622, it refers to the borough, which suggests, presumably that should say something different, like district or West Berkshire or, you know. Continue to develop and improve your knowledge of the main and shortest routes around the borough.
That could be a typo, Councillor.
Well, that's what I'm pointing it out.
Yeah.
Good. And actually, and then there's the very same item says not to place sole reliance on satellite navigation equipment. Is that consistent with what you said earlier about it? So they can place some reliance on it, but not sole reliance on it, because they have to have the knowledge of the area. So, okay, that's all clear. Thank you. That's all.
Are you content, sir?
I'm very content.
And that's good to hear. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you. On page 21, I'm being pedantic before you tell me. At the bottom of paragraph 6A, I don't know what, does it mean to say the threshold ID test, or is that a typing error? ID test. Page 21.
We await a volunteer from the two officers to assist.
It says the threshold ID test used here is lower than used in criminal proceedings.
Yeah, in answer to that question, the threshold for ourselves is on the balance of probabilities, where in criminal it's beyond reasonable doubt. So we only have to go on the balance of probabilities that an offence may have taken place to be able to determine what happens.
I don't think that's quite the question, is it?
ID, a threshold ID test.
Sir.
Is it a typing error?
I would imagine it's a typing error on that one.
Thank you. Can you blot it out?
Yes, we do.
Councillor Stevenson, as one pedant to another, please continue.
Yes, this next one is pedantic as well. Page 73. It's very pedantic, sorry. Under unacceptable standards, D, we've got a very strange word at the end there, designed to provoke discrimination or objection. Can you just check that? It's a typing error, that's all.
Which one's that against, Councillor? That was...
Thank you.
He's lost the page reference, please.
Page 73, paragraph 7.9, underneath it changes and becomes unacceptable standards, and it's paragraph D, the last word is not English.
Okay.
Well, we'll assume that's a typo and it can be easily rectified. Thank you. Have you any other things you'd like to say? Last call,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't give you a page number or reference number, I'm afraid, but I did sort of smile to myself when I read the bit which said that the taxi drivers should present the area in which they're working in a good light and make the town look at its best. I have a feeling that that is a bit unreasonable, because we're asking them, we're trying to tell them what their opinion should be, and I think that's a little bit unreasonable to be saying that. Great if they do, but asking them to do it?
So another councillor is nodding here. Again, I'm looking at the officers. Do you know what this is about? And is it just clumsy or what?
It's a way of the trades representing the town and the county in the way it should be dealt with. If
I was a driver, what would you have me do?
To be polite at all times, be courteous to the passengers. Bear in mind that we received a complaint last year in relation to a driver who was, shall we say, not appropriate in the way he dealt with his passenger, and that passenger has now vowed that they will never, ever use a hackney carriage or a private hire driver in Newbury again.
Sorry, what were the words again that you, if I was a driver, you would tell me?
To be courteous, polite.
Well, if we need anything, why not say that then?
Well, that's not the point, I'm afraid. I quite believe that they usually are very courteous and polite, but we're not saying that in this particular instance. We're saying you must present the town, and it is very Newbury-centric, I notice. We must present the town in a very positive light. I think that's a bit unreasonable. I think to try and tell people what they think and what they should say is a little bit unreasonable.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stevenson. Sir,
We can amend that accordingly.
are you content? He said that they can amend that accordingly. Any last thoughts from members? Now, I am conscious of the fact that there has been a bit of history in this group with the licensed trade. We've not always hit it off perfectly. There's been silly mistakes made. There are two people who are here today. There's no expectation on their part, I'm sure, that they need to speak, but I'm wondering if you'd be happy to suspend standing orders and allow them to speak very briefly if they so wish. What say you? We need a proposer then. Thank you. And Councillor Langford seconded. Everybody in favour? So that's all of us. So, gentlemen, now I just remind you that this document is going out to consultation. So don't tell us what you think about paragraph 7, because you're going to get that opportunity. But if there's anything more general, just for a couple of minutes you'd like to share, we are listening. But you need to come to the podium, please. Just tell us who you are, because we don't all know.
Richard Brown. Hackney carriage driver, private hire operator. Are we all reading version 4 of this document?
I don't know.
It would be nice to know because there's so many circulated.
Okay.
If this is all what you've received on the 7th of March, I'll carry on.
I believe it is. Can you confirm that, officers? Certainly the agenda came to us on the 7th of March.
Front sheet doesn't say West Berkshire Council. It says Public Protection, Bracknell Forest and West Berkshire. Whose is it?
I think there's a technical reason for that, isn't there? I believe we do work in cooperation with Bracknell.
We do, but we don't need to discuss Bracknell in these meetings. We don't need that heading. And if you were to take that out, it doesn't say anything about West Berkshire Council on the front page of this policy.
Okay, thank you. I suspect that we can easily amend the front sheet, officers, yes? Thank you.
Your members have noted some points. Point 21 is totally missing off of the itemisation of everything. You've got you've got here Appendix A, Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Licence Conviction Policy, and unfortunately, it's dated adopted June 25. Have I missed something?
I don't believe you have.
Thank you.
These are typos. There's been a few others. They're being noted.
I'm sorry to say this whole document is littered with typos. We are West Berkshire Council. Yes, we have bylaws and the borough is still in the bylaws. We're not a district council anymore. 1992, was it?
That rings a bell, yeah.
Thank you. Why is this document listed with West Berkshire District Council?
Okay, well, we'll get them to look at that. There could be a reason
We understand that we've got our meeting, but we had meetings prior to bringing this document to you.
All right.
We're ashamed that it's come to you because you've read a few bits, but have you all read it all?
Okay.
Do you all understand it?
Well,
and if you were applying for a licence today, do you understand it? I'm sorry, I don't think you all would.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the document?
There's too much. We'll save our time. We'll have a meeting.
All right.
And unfortunately, it's not going to be the one meeting. It's going to be several. Okay. We started a process. We've been on this since 2021.
Okay.
The cost of it, I don't know where it's gone. We've had experts try to write this document. Now we've got officers, no disrespect to the two here today. Everyone's trying to do their best. But there is so much repercussion and everything keeps being repeated.
Okay.
You've really got to read it to understand it.
Sure.
And we're lost.
All right.
And I've been in the trade 45 years.
Okay. We hear what you say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does your colleague want to say anything or is it the same point?
It's all the same point.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. No, thank you. So members, a decision to make here. We have a document which the assumption would have been that we would have passed for consultation, subject to the few changes that we have collectively raised. The members of the trade are suggesting that it's a lot worse than that, and this is part of the history of the whole thing. I understand that. So I'm going to come to officers in a moment and see what their advice is. But I think Councillor Langford wanted to speak first.
I think you have to reinstate standing orders, don't you, Chairman?
Yes, if we're content that that contribution is over.
I'm quite happy to propose that.
Thank you. A seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Okay, we're back in business. So that was, members, have you got anything else to say about what's just been said before I go back to officers? Councillor Stevenson.
Yes, I did fail to spot what's just been mentioned on page 16, which is the index to what's going to happen. There is a missing 21. So that does need rectifying. So 21 needs adding in between age of vehicles and roof signs.
That's been noted. That really wasn't my question. Councillor Vickers.
Well, yes, I'm a bit troubled by the comments of our taxi drivers, you know, and obviously they need to be content with this document, and it doesn't seem that they are. I mean, you've reinstated standing orders, but they seem to be saying, apart from the typos, which obviously are easy to correct, that it's not easy to actually understand, or it's not. So if it's going out, you're shaking your head. Does that mean yes? It's not. So it's if it's going out to consultation, we need to feel happy that the people it's going to can read it through. It's just a long document, and I did I didn't read every word, but I tried to go through it. But it's just, I was a bit appalled when I saw how many pages it was. So it needs to be readable. I don't know whether it needs to be sort of condensing a bit. There's a bit of repetition, which I think you said. So, which makes it difficult if we're not feeling comfortable with the document today to actually approve it. So I'm not quite sure whether you, Chair, could comment on that.
I mean, that's interesting. The document itself is based on some legislation and then some guidance, and often documents that come from that kind of background are repetitive, often, sometimes for good reason. Just 1 second. Apologies for the delay. So I'm going to turn to the officers now. So we've heard the criticisms of the document. It is going out for consultation, so it's not a final version of anything. There seems to be, we're being told that it has got a lot more inconsistencies than just the odd typo. Inevitably, none of the members are expected to be experts in this trade, and that's why we have officers. We question them, and if we're satisfied with their advice, we take it. So, officers, it's over to you. The assumption is, subject to whatever changes need to be made, we approve this document for consultation, knowing that the members of the trade have every opportunity to tell us in detail what they want. On the other hand, if you're in sympathy with them, then you might want to advise us differently. So it's over to Mr. Groves first, I think. What say you? What is your advice to us in the light of what's been said?
Thank you very much, Chair. It's appreciated what the members of points they've raised, which some have been answered, hopefully, to the satisfaction of the councillors. Some, as pointed out, are slight typo errors, which can be rectified in due course. The policy needs to be decided on at some point. We've obviously brought it to the committee today for that approval, yes or no. We will be guided by whatever the committee members decide. If it is felt that it needs a little bit more work carried onto it before it goes out, then that will be done, and we can change the consultation period. It doesn't have to start tomorrow as dictated. That can be changed and the dates changed to rectify.
Sorry, with respect, I don't think that's terribly helpful. What the gentlemen at the back are saying is that some of the technical stuff is repetitive and confused and confusing. Now, as the experts, you're either sitting there thinking, oh God, yeah, we haven't done a good job here, we need to have another go, or you're thinking, actually, some of the confusion about the technical topics are understandable and will arise until we finally have our own policy. So again, on behalf of members, subject to what they say, is it safe? Apart from the straightforward things that members have raised and you can easily change, is it safe to go out to consultation with the document in the shape it's in? Because we don't want to be doing this again.
The consultation has been through legal. They've agreed with it, and they made a few amendments which have been changed.
No, I'm asking you as the expert in this area.
And I'm satisfied that it can go forward, Chair.
And your colleagues support you in that. Thank you. Members, it's a straightforward choice. We've got a document which is being criticised, but again, it's a consultation, so maybe that's all right. There are some things that we've picked up that need to be changed and will be changed. We've been assured of that. So publish and capture all the feedback or not, bearing in mind there's been delay after delay after delay. So over to members. Who's first? Councillor Marsh, followed by Councillor Taylor. You twitched, sir.
Actually, I didn't have my hand up, but I was still thinking about it. But what I think is that, accepting that there are some misgivings about it, that will come out in the consultation process. I don't think we should hold it up any longer. I think it should go out to consultation, and we should listen to what the trade and others have to say about it, and then refine it appropriately. That's my view.
Give them their opportunity to tell us loud and clear and soon what their problems are.
Yeah, that's my view, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I think similar. I did read through the entire document earlier, and I did notice a lot of typos. I didn't list them down. I wasn't intending to raise typos. It would be good if those could be tidied up before it goes out. I found it was easy to understand. I agree there is some repetition. I think sometimes it goes through a load of conditions applying to hackney carriages, and then there are a few pages on it's the same list of conditions, largely applying to private hire vehicles, for example. But I'd agree with Councillor Marsh that I think if it's tidied up in terms of the typos, that on balance, I feel it should go out for consultation.
Thank you. That's clear. Councillor Drummond.
I'd like to ask through you, Chairman, why isn't Officer Julia O'Brien here today? She's a pro-author.
All right, gentlemen, we've been quite tolerant, and that's not helpful. I do know the lady is ill.
All right. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Councillor Barnett, sir.
I just wanted to reiterate what Councillor Marsh and Councillor Taylor have said. You know, I think this is a time to go forward. And actually, some of the points that I was trying to address in regarding consultation, I would hope that some of the typing areas and some of the points that the visitors have made tonight would quickly be put into the council so that they could be addressed at a very early stage and not in the last minute.
Thank you. That's very clear. Any other member? Councillor Langford, then Councillor Vickers. To be fair.
Thank you, Chair. We are asking the taxi trade to have very high standards in the way they operate. If we don't demonstrate the same high standards, we are falling foul of what we should be doing. So I'm afraid I think it does need to be revised, smartened up, reduced in length if possible. I don't mind repetition because sometimes that makes things clearer in different areas from different reasons, but we need to have the same standards as we're expecting from the taxi trade.
Thank you. I think you're suggesting we lead by example, which is a noble thing. Councillor Vickers.
Well, yes, I mean, I'm a little bit, I mean, I don't know what the history of this is, or maybe I've forgotten, between the taxi trade and ourselves, but I'm just, you know, to get a very sort of negative attitude from our representatives here, it doesn't sort of bode well for a good consultation if they're representative of the trade, and we'd like to feel that, you know, any feedback, because a consultation is not meant to be, oh, we don't think this is a good, it's meant to be the content of the document, not the structure of the document, isn't it really? So we're not wanting feedback on the structure of the document, we want the content and making sure that you know, people are happy with what's there and it's comprehensive, and the content is fine, but I don't know whether our representatives are saying that it's just going to be, it won't be responded to well enough because of the length. Is it the length that you're particularly concerned?
Councillor, they've had their say, and I don't think we should be asking them questions.
So I'm in some ways I'm in agreement with Councillor Langford that does it matter if it did go back? I'm just wondering what the officers would do with it. That's my only concern, because they seem to be quite comfortable with what's there. So I mean, I'll go with my colleagues, but I'm just feeling a little bit uneasy that of the negativity that we're getting. That's
well, yes, and that's one of the reasons why we set aside standing orders. Councillor Stevenson.
At the last meeting, you will remember when there was confusion with being online and not being online, the member of the trade who was sitting with us and took part mentioned not a thing that our other taxi operators have mentioned. He mentioned other things entirely. So I think this policy, which is garnered from examples across England and Wales and has been developing for several years, needs to go to consultation. The repetition is, as we heard, it's part, then you read hackney carriage and then you read private hire, and of course a lot of it's the same, but they have to be repeated, I think, so that each category has its own rules and regulations. I mean, the number of times people in this trade can get points on their licence is this long. You know, I did read them all the first time we had the document. I just think it's time it goes to the consultation, and these points will be brought out by hopefully as many members of the trade as can.
Thank you. Councillor Drummond.
Can I ask Councillor Stevenson, are you proposing that?
Is it too soon?
If you have a proposal, we're listening.
I would like to propose that it goes as it is out to consultation now, because any more delays, it's going to come back to us again. We're going to think, well, we don't like paragraph 6C. How many times do we delay? You know, the officers have been revising this and bringing it up to date. Let's get it out to consultation, and then we can come back and hear the criticisms that are being loaded against it.
We hear that. Councillor Drummond?
And I'm happy to second that proposal.
Okay, members, we have a proposal and a seconder. I think generally there was support for going to consultation as quickly as possible. We are a little embarrassed by the errors in the document. We've picked up some, but we can't really write a blank check. So I think that the vote is on the basis of those errors that have been identified in this meeting must be changed. And the rest of the document will have to go out as it is. That's the only way forward.
Correction in typographic errors.
Well, as I said, the ones that have been identified, not imaginary ones, yeah. So I think on that basis, 1 second.
Apologies, just to be a bit pedantic. Can I also, does that include the recommendation that it will come back to the licensing committee once it's been consulted on for the decision of adoption?
I assumed that was going to happen, and if you wished for it to be in the proposal, can you add that in, please? Is that correct, Mr. Chair?
If we find our way, I was simply going to ask the officer just to remind us. So we're approving the document subject to the specific things that we have raised that we want changed. Now, the simple question is, there are dates in the consultation. Can we make those few changes and stick to the dates as suggested in this document? And then it comes back to us in due course.
I don't know whether the officers might want to mention the fact. So this was, if agreed, this would run from tomorrow. I don't know whether you want to give officers a bit more time to review.
That's what I'm asking. I don't want to give them more
Apologies.
time, but I'm asking, can they make the few that we've mentioned in the next 24 hours? Yes or no?
Yes, Chair.
So we can stick to the, confidently stick to the timetable as outlined in the document. And of course, it will come back then for final agreement in this room. So we have a proposal and we have a second. Do we understand what we're voting on, which is always important? All in favour of the proposal? Anyone against? Okay, so there's one person against. You've made a note of that. So subject to what's been said, this consultation will go ahead as discussed this afternoon. So the final item today is to note the date of the next meeting, which is on the 7th of July at 4:30. Thank you very much for your attendance and thank you for your support from the back of the room, as it were. So this meeting is now closed, subject to Mr. Radbourne telling us that he's managed that.